Hi, this is Tom Brevoort, and you are listening to the Captain America Comic Fans Podcast.
Greetings, Cap fans, and welcome to episode 148 of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast. I'm Rick Verbanis. I am your host, and I got a guy by the name of Bob Lucius. He's the best gosh darn co-host out there. Oh, Bob. Jamming good with Weird and Gilly and the Spiders from Mars. He played it left hand, but made it too far. Became the special man, but then we were Ziggy's band. Ziggy really sang, screwed up eyes and screwed down hairdo, like some cat from Japan. He could lick them by smiling. He could leave them to hang.
I don't know. I don't know, Rick. The only thing I can think is you've been into Grandpa's hooch.
That's David Bowie.
Is it Ziggy Stardust?
Ziggy Stardust.
All right. Okay.
You don't know that song?
I can't tell you. I don't think I've listened to a lot of David Bowie. Maybe a little, later stuff like China Girl, but but no, I'm not that familiar with his earlier stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Ziggy Stardust was a big deal. The album was Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Came out in 1972. Bob, why is that my greeting to you today?
Could it be, Rick, because we are once again examining Dimension Z?
No, we are.
Oh,
yes, we are.
Yes.
Today we are covering Captain America Volume 7, Number 7, which is Escape from Dimension Z Part 7 of a 10-part story. We have been covering this basically the second Wednesday of every month for the last half a year. And so this is Part 7. We got 4 parts to go, and it has been getting so good.
Really has. Yeah. I am like appreciating this more and more and more. It's turning out to be one of my favorite stories.
Really? And why is that?
It's just got a lot of depth to it. I mean, it's got a lot of action, of course, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but there's a lot of psychology going on here. I mean, there's a lot of morality and ethics and values, right?
Yes.
It's the generational themes that go from Steve's father to Steve, and Steve to Ian, and Zola to Leopold slash Ian, right? And Zola and Jet. And I mean, there's a lot here to chew on.
Yeah.
That is just far deeper than just the surface stuff.
I agree 100%. I do love that as well. And certainly in addition to all that, in some of the earlier issues, we got to see flashbacks to when Steve was a child and some of the things that he did with his mom, and some I guess crossroads that he faced, whether to do a wrong thing for the right reason. Anyway, yeah, it's been a deep story, but the action's been good too. And so can't wait to get into that. But before we do, Bob, I wanted to give an update on that Taco Bell Captain America 1 giveaway that we had done. And we had announced that the winner was Brent Beisel. And so I reached out to Brent to let him know about it. And oddly enough, it's kind of funny. He wrote back and he said, "Thanks for reaching out. It's cool that I got picked to win the Taco Bell limited collector's edition, as Bob likes to remind you."
No. Exclusive.
No? Oh, is that it? Well,
yeah,
all
it's
right.
Exclusive. It's not limited. I mean, limited, I could get it, but like this is exclusive.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you just corrected our listener. He said, "That said, if it's okay with you, I'd like to pay this forward to somebody else. Before learning I was qualified for the contest, I was inspired by the podcast to seek out my own copy of this book. Fortunately, I was able to get one on eBay for a steal. Since I now have one and the current eBay prices are way above what I paid, I feel like I should pass this on to someone else who would appreciate having the issue. After hearing you guys talk about the values displayed on your challenge coin, I think it's what Cap would do.
Wow, that's great. But there's two takeaways here, Rick.
What's that, Bob?
One is Brent is a great guy.
Yeah,
because he does what Cap would do.
exactly.
And the other is, I have a sneaking suspicion that we are moving the speculation market.
Yeah, I do too. Right? prices are going up ever since we did the podcast.
That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that. I wouldn't be surprised if that comic showed up on cover top 10, cover prices top 10 comics this week. For speculators. So.
Yeah, and not to mention we had Scott Koblish on the show, right? He was the artist, and so that kind of, I think, sparked a little extra interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would suggest those of you that are listening to pay extra close attention to what we're covering. Could be your ticket to an early retirement.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. If you had, I don't know, 10 copies of this Taco Bell exclusive number one, you probably could.
You could
buy dinner,
buy probably one of those giant packs of adult diapers. For yourself.
Bob, why in the world would you even come up with that?
I am planning ahead for my retirement, Rick. I know how much those things cost. I've checked.
How soon do you need them, Bob?
You never can be too careful, Rick.
Especially if you just had Taco Bell.
Especially if you just had Taco Bell. Yeah.
Take a run for the bathroom. All right. So that means, thanks to Brent Beisel, we are going to have to pick somebody else, Bob, to hand this out to. So, all right, pick left hand or right hand.
Your left or my right?
Well, that doesn't.
I'm just kidding. Left hand, Rick.
Left hand. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to give this comic out to D-Dog 123.
Oh, I was hoping it was going to be D-Dog 123.
D-Dog 123. Yeah, he gave us a 5-star review titled "They Could Do This All Day." So, D-Dog, send me an email at capcomicfans@gmail.com and reach out to me, and we'll get your address and we'll get this out to you, courtesy of Brent.
All right.
All right, Bob. So I think it's time to get to the comic. What do you think?
Let's do it.
You want to hear the solicitation?
I sure do.
All right. It's really lengthy. Are you ready?
Okay. I'll sit down.
Zola's master plan revealed. Ian's fate decided. Captain Zola's quest for lies and injustice. That's it.
Anticlimactic a little bit.
I know, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, let's see what happens to Ian's fate and Zola's master plan.
Yeah, maybe they'll make it up for us in this issue.
I think they will. So the creators for this were the same as we've been having. Writer Rick Remender, penciler John Romita Jr., inked by Scott Hanna and Klaus Janson. So we have two different inkers on this book. Colorist Dean White, letterer Joe Caramanga, and editor Tom Brevoort. Now, I feel like I gotta apologize to Joe Caramanga.
Okay.
So, if you recall, when we did the Taco Bell comic,
we did, yes.
Joe Caramanga was the writer,
right,
and the letterer, and he had been a letterer for some time.
Yeah,
and then of course Scott Koblish was the penciler, and so I had put out that we had just covered this the comic, and I put it on Twitter, and I tagged Scott Koblish and I tagged Joe Caramanga. So and Joe replied in the tweet. He said, "Thanks for the fun walk down memory lane. But I'll have you good sirs know that I was not thrown a bone. I was cutting my teeth."
No.
I went on to write many comics and graphic novels over the years and to this day. And Scott is probably still my favorite artist to work with. So I think, I don't know. Did I say that? Oh, they must have gotten the letter and throw him a bone and let him write a story. Like,
I don't know. That rings familiar. So
I meant no offense.
I know you didn't. I know
you know
yeah.
me. I'm
I
not that way.
I think it's just nothing that we have ever reviewed or probably read. Joe has written, and so it was a surprise to us,
right? Because it was his first story he wrote,
right?
So anyway, I did apologize to him, and it basically, said we'd love to have you on the show. So he said, that at some point he will come on the show, which would be cool because
I thought you were going to say that like he wanted us to send him questions and he would letter us answers.
Anyway, so we hope to have Joe on the show because yes, he has been a writer, but we see his name quite often as a letterer, and we've never had a letterer on the show. We've had editors, writers, pencilers, inkers, colorists, but never a letterer. And he has done a ton of comics over his career. And I'm sure he has a ton of cool stories to share with us. So, hopefully we'll get him on the show one of these days.
Yeah. I mean, his name has probably been in more comics than just about anybody.
I mean, it's up there.
It is, right? I mean, yeah, it's just as prolific as his work is.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So it'd be great to have him on the show.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the team, the creative team. The cover is done by John Romita Jr. And do you want to take the listeners through what the cover looks like?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a great cover. It's really gives you the willies and gives you some expectations about what you're going to see in this book. But
hold on. You said it gives me the willies.
Yeah.
All right. So when I was preparing for tonight's episode,
this isn't a tangent. This is a legitimate.
No, this is a tangent.
Okay. You forgot to warn everybody. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When I was preparing for tonight, I was like, all right, I got to come up with something with the letter Z.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, what TV shows start with Z? What movies start with Z? And you know what movie popped up to me that started with the letter Z? And then I was like, oh yeah.
What?
Zapped.
Scott Baio
and Willie Ames.
And Willie Ames, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So that movie came out in 1982. I'm pretty sure it was rated R. Mm-hmm. And oh my God, the like if you just pull up a Zapped movie poster, it's the two of them using their powers to lift up a girl's skirt who's bent over.
Right.
I mean, completely sexist, right? I mean, like, that would never fly in today's time.
I know the movies in the 80s had so much, tomfoolery and gratuitous nudity, like you would never,
Oh yeah. So the guy, Scott Baio, gets these powers during a lab accident. So of course he's a teenager. What does he do? He uses it to lift up girls' skirts and open up their blouses, and
the exact same thing any of us would have done.
Hell yeah.
Right, of course.
And I wouldn't have had to been a teenager to do it. Anyways, but I was looking, I read like all the quotes online from the movie Zapped. There was nothing I could use.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No.
Well, here's a little fun fact, as long as we're doing tangents, I'm looking up the etymology, the root of that word, the meaning, the origins of the word, the willies. Apparently, it has been in use since 1896, Rick, and it stems perhaps from the woolies, a term for nervous uneasiness, probably in reference to the physical itchiness of wool garments.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with woolly mammoths?
Nothing. So apparently this cover gives me the woolies.
Ah.
Yeah.
Gary Goldman, he's a funny comedian. Really like him. I've seen him live a couple of times.
What you talking about, Willis?
No, Gary Goldman. Not Coleman.
I know.
Not Coleman.
I saw the shot and I took it now.
I don't blame you. And he was talking about woolly mammoths, and he was like, do you really have to call them woolly? I mean, what other mammoths out there were there back then? Like, were there so many different, oh, that's the cotton. That's the cotton
right.
mammoth.
The silky mammoth.
Yeah, the silky mammoth. There's the corduroy mammoth. But
Yeah.
those were killed off pretty quickly because you could always hear them coming.
I like that one. Yeah, that's a good one.
So speaking of entomology,
Yeah.
Bob, what do you think is the etymology for the word entomology?
No, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm going to put that in my notebook on my checklist of things to look into that I won't look into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just,
Yeah. It's good.
Things I think about.
Yes. All right. So anyway, back to the cover, Rick.
Oh, yeah.
Fabulous cover. Very exciting. We've got 3 characters. We've got Cap. And we've got young Ian, who's still a very young lad, around 10 years of age, 11 years of age, right?
Maybe 12. Yeah.
Maybe 12. I don't know. He ages faster. Right. And so, and then we've got in the background, someone we've seen before, but only very briefly. And this is Captain Zolandia.
Yeah.
So this is a mutate that has been created from Steve's DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the foreground, we have Cap, and he is crouched over, and it's a little unsure what he's doing here, but it looks almost like he's very unsteady, right? He's weak. He's bleeding from underneath his mask.
Mm-hmm.
His uniform's torn up. You could tell he's haggard,
Mm-hmm.
and he's bracing himself with his left hand on the ground as he's crouched over. And facing him is young Ian, and Ian has a weapon in his hands, and he's pointing it at Steve.
What?
And,
his dad?
At his dad, and it doesn't look like a Nerf gun, Rick. Uh-huh. And he's got a very angry look on his face. And then, of course, behind Ian, we see Captain Zolandia, and he's a gigantic beast of a thing, and he is looming over the both of them. Mm-hmm. And he's all this grayscale coloring with a Z on his forehead and very, very sharp pointed teeth. And he's got 2 shields, one strapped to each fist, and they've got jagged edges on them. So he is coming, hunting for bear, and he's coming after Steve, assuming Ian doesn't shoot him first.
Yeah, and in the buzz saws that he has on his wrists, right? They're large, but it kind of reminds you of the Gladiator. The villain, the Gladiator. He had those buzz saws on his, except these are a lot larger.
Yeah,
and certainly more intimidating. All right, so let's get to the inside of the comic, and we have it starts off with a previously, and as you have done previously, do you want to read this for the listeners?
Sure, I'd love to, Rick. Thank you for the privilege. Previously, villainous geneticist Arnim Zola lured Captain America to Dimension Z in order to unlock the secrets of the super soldier serum within Cap's DNA. Cap escaped Zola's fortress, absconding with an infant he named Ian. For a dozen years, Cap wandered the desolation of Dimension Z, raising Ian as his own child. Eventually, they were taken in by the Frocks, natives of Dimension Z, who oppose Zola's cruel reign. After a bloody battle between the Frocks and the monstrous mutates under the command of Zola's daughter, Jet Black, Zola was able to reclaim Ian, leaving Captain America for dead. Vowing to get his son back, Cap battled his way back into Zola's compound, where he confronted Jet Black. In the meantime, Zola attempted to bring Ian back into his family fold through brainwashing.
Nice. Yeah, good stuff. Good cliffhanger. Each one of these has been a cliffhanger.
Yeah, really get you. Really, I mean, I can't wait till next month.
Exactly. All right, so let's open it up to the first page of art. And it says 2 years ago. And we see, it looks like, suns are setting and it is dusk. And in the village of the Frocks, they're near a river, and they are gathering, looks like harvesting their crops, and sitting off by themselves, just the 2 of them, is Steve and Ian. And Steve has his uniform on and his shield on his back, and he's got his shaggy blonde hair and his beard and his damaged uniform that has been held together with some bandages. And then Ian's there, and he's got long brown hair, and they're both sitting there, like, looks like they're enjoying a dinner. And there's a little bowl of various fruits and other types of food, and they're just kind of relaxing, which is not something you see too often in this story. And Ian says to his dad, Steve, "Do you miss your old life back home? You don't talk about it, but it must be hard to have it all just go away one day." "My father once told me to never waste time thinking about what you don't have, but to focus on what you do and what you can do with it." And the name of this story, Bob, is
Ashes of Our Fathers.
this small moment of solitude with you, the setting suns, light dancing off the river after a simple day of farming. I'm as happy as I can be, Ian. You've never mentioned him before. What was your dad like? Steve pauses for a moment. He was crushed by the weight of hard times, but he was a good man. My time raising you, I see that more and more. Being a father to you, it's exposed so many memories. It helps me to better understand the pressure my father was under. He loved us, but his inability to provide during some hard years, it robbed him of his pride and eventually his hope. He just couldn't stand back up. He was drinking, escaping what he saw as a hopeless situation, and the only way he could. Over time, he just disappeared. Do you ever worry that could happen to you? That you could lose hope? That you could disappear? I spent my life running so hard away from his shadow, trying to be strong in every way he was weak. I did disappear, became a slave to an ideal, disappeared into duty, and instead of abusing those I loved, I was entirely unavailable to them. But that's done. I'm always going to be here for you, Ian. I'll never let anything come between us. I'll never disappear on you. And now we cut 2 years to present time to Zealandia. And it's the middle of night, and we're at the capital where Zola's fortress is. And we see some of the mutates. They are running up looking for Princess Jet Black. "Princess Jet, we endangered. We breached. Get ready for the danger and hunger for blood. Hated flesh form entered holy temple for your revenge. Prepare for the murder times. Lord Zola say this is the day of journey. He risk no more. We go for giving of gifts. All the times of power. Prepare itself, princess. We are besieged. Come, princess. No." And then out of nowhere, we see Cap with his shield decapitate the mutate. Zola's creations, not living things, evil things between me and my son. Evil but well built. That one almost had me. Can't take much more. Body is done, nearing total collapse. Chest heaves, and somewhere in the background, I hear him, Zola. And he grabs his chest, and he shrugs and screams in pain. Flushed with anxiety, muscle spasm, past exhaustion, adrenaline reserves gone. And then he pulls out that bullet, Bob. Do you remember that bullet from I think it was issue 2 or 3?
Right. Yeah. Right. The one with diligence on it.
Yeah. And he looks at that, and then he puts it back away. Stand up. You always stand up. And then we cut to Zola, who is on a monitor talking with his daughter, Jet Black. Where are you now? In my room. Rogers lacked the nerve to kill me when he had the chance. Again. Beware, father. He's in Tower Zolandia, and he's after Ian. Leopold, dear girl. The boy's name is Leopold, and Rogers is far, far too late. I actually prefer to let him find the boy. Salt on the wound. Be aware, dear, I am moving forward the plan. The expansion? Now? I will not risk Herr Rogers upsetting things, as he has countless times before. Do we have enough mutates? I will harvest all the bioclay needed to round out the horde. Within the hour, my mutate militia will be ample for the expansion. Why waste the energy? We have all we need. Rejoice, my beloved daughter. The first kingdom is now. Earth will be yours. For Zola will be humanity. And then we cut to Steve Rogers climbing up a cliff. Your lab is at the top of the tower, Zola. I remember that much. Where I took Ian from you all those years ago. Not took. Saved. Know enough about you to know. No second guessing that. Not anymore. Your mutates will have found Jet. You'll be expecting me. Expecting a fight. A fight I don't have to give. But I will get Ian out of this madhouse. Somehow. I'll get that much done. And he's on the outside of a building, on the ledge of a window. And he reaches into his pouch and he grabs a little grappling hook and a cable. Very Batman-like.
There's the pouch, Rick. For all you pouch haters out there.
What else do you think he's got in there, Bob?
Well, the pouches are a constant source of debate in the Facebook group, Rick. What does Cap keep in the pouch? Why does he have pouches? I don't like pouches. Y'all like pouches? You like pouches?
I don't have, you know what? I don't have a dog in this fight. I could care less one way or the other. As long as they're subtle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As long as it's not like, he's got a gondolier or whatever they call him.
Right.
Crisscross in his chest, I mean.
Right. A bandolier?
Bandolier, sorry.
Yeah. Gondolier.
Gondolier.
Oh, solo mio.
As long as he's not carrying around a gondolier, Bob. I can't stand those.
There aren't that many examples, I think, in Cap's comics where he actually uses something in one of his pouches. Right. I mean, we've had this discussion a lot in the group, and people are like trying to come up with examples of when does he actually pull something out of a pouch? And here we have it.
And it's a grappling hook and a cable. So it's important stuff. It's useful.
Yeah.
Right. So he's there and he's got his left hand and he's twirling the grappling hook to throw it up the side of the building so he can climb up the side of the building. And he continues his thought about Ian. Get him home. Home to the peace of the dream I fought so hard for. Home to his peace of normalcy. Home to... And then we cut to inside the building, on the other side of the glass, where he's standing and he's twirling, and we see a Captain Zolandia, the big mutate with the buzzsaws, running from the other side, and he next panel bursts through the glass with a big loud noise, Bob. And Cap puts his shield up just the right time as his fists and his jagged shield comes at Cap's head. But he's flying backwards. He just climbed up the cliff, Bob, and now he's getting thrust backwards.
Like a video game, man.
And he's totally out in the air. Like he's not going to be able to grab anything.
No. Yeah.
And he's like the Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah.
Right. And
right,
he's out in the middle of space, and there's only one way to go.
You can hear he went ballistic. I can't even whistle. I can't do it. I'm dry over here.
Like that?
Yeah. He's got
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Got it. So they're falling into it looks like a glass window ceiling on the next level, and crash through that, Bob. And then they go into the inner city, and Cap's like, son of a, and he kicks away the mutate, and then the mutate falls onto some spikes, and which looks like it kills him, and that makes a loud noise too.
You meant the, oh, I'm sorry.
And then Cap bounces off of his shield, so he's okay, but he bounces a couple of times because it was a hard hit. Lungs refuse to take air. Freshly torn rotator cuff. Ignore it. Stand up. Save your boy. Now we get to this next page, and it is a really cool page, Bob. It's like a double page splash.
Yeah.
And the double page, it essentially like it's a half splash that goes completely across two panels, right? So that's the top half. And then the bottom half, there's a middle panel that goes from left to right all the way across. And then underneath that, there are 4 more panels. It's a really impressive layout. I think it's a cool layout because it really shows and demonstrates this long bridge that Cap's walking out onto. And boy, is this reminiscent of Captain America,
Yeah.
the first Avenger,
Sure
when
is.
when he's standing there, and on the other side of the bridge is the Red Skull.
Yeah, I thought of that as well. And then below this bridge is a bubbling cauldron,
Right.
just as there was fire in the first Avenger.
Yeah. And which I think that movie came out just a couple of years before this comic. So who knows if John Romita Jr. kind of, went with that, or maybe even if Rick Remender, wrote that into the story. But on the top of the panel, you see all these different huge life-size test tubes, with some are empty and some have the frocks in them, and it's the female frocks. Remember, they killed all the men and took the women for breeding. So that is the layout of the page, which is, again, pretty impressive. And then we hear Jet Black on the other side. Now can you describe what she's wearing, Bob?
Yeah.
Because last time we saw her, she was just wearing a towel.
Yeah, right. She was tied up on the floor on her knees, the way Steve Rogers had left her and the mutates had found her. But now she's back into her, well, let's just say what it is. It's a very skimpy outfit that consists of sort of something that wraps around her, her breasts, and something around her midsection, her waist, and then black gloves, and then she has these black straps around her upper arms and her calves and her upper thighs, and all of them are connected by these very thin black pieces that run vertical. And that headdress that again, her princess headdress, it's somewhat reminiscent of Loki's headgear. And remember, this is her, she has omnisenses, so she, through her skin, she is able to detect all these different senses, use all the different senses, and with high fidelity. And so this allows her to focus that her omnisenses and make use of them.
Did you mention it was skin tight? I don't remember.
I did in my head repeatedly. Yes.
So she says to Cap, "I can see how difficult this is for you. So lost in your own misguided sense of righteousness. You truly believe you saved my brother from some evil fate when you stole him away from us. Perhaps you'd hoped that Perhaps you hoped that by sparing me, I'd be converted to your befuddled perception of things. Perhaps you imagined that I would allow you to abscond in the night with my brother again. Whatever your motivations, You should have killed me. I don't kill the helpless to get what I want, especially the weak-minded. That's a major difference between your father and me. The real question is, would you have? I am my father's daughter. I am jet black, named for the status of my heart. It protects me from the evil brought about by weakness. What good is the love of a soft heart when I have the ability to heighten any one of my useful senses to an infinite degree? Hearing, for example, your heart straining, your lungs wheezing, your fatigue, your fear. And she uses the staff that she holds, and there's an electrical ray that fires out that Cap blocks with his shield. So you can hear the frocks in their pens, these terrified innocents preparing for a meaningless death. Can you hear their fear? Can you allow these innocent creatures to suffer? For what? The future. And she fires at him again, and then she strikes at him, but he blocks it with his shield. The glorious expansion of Zola. I don't need the omniscience to hear the doubt in your voice. Damn it, listen to me. This is your final chance to do what is right. And she punches him in the face, but he punches her back. Help me save these frocks. Help me save Ian. Ian is not in danger. You are. And she knees him in the gut. But he takes her wrist and punches her in the face. Rusty hinge, followed by a scream. And one of the frocks, the tube opens up at the underneath where she's supposed to fall into that molten soup of some sort. And but she's holding on for dear life, and she's yelling out to him. No good way to do this. No choice. And he takes the grappling hook, and then he jumps, swinging over to grab her. Midair, it hits me. The churning soup, the smell. It's them. The frocks. The weeping woman in my arms has been watching it, watching her people drop down into the molten sludge, waiting her turn. Okay, I've got you. You're okay. But he's just hanging there. He's got her in one arm, and he's hanging on the cable and from the bridge, and Jet Black is leaning over, looking down at the two of them. Pull us up before another one is dropped in, before another dies. Fool, why should I listen for a single moment? Your father kept you here, so you never had a chance to see compassion. It's not your fault what he's done. None of it. The nausea, the tightness in your chest, the sleepless nights. You know this is wrong. If you stand by and do nothing, you share the guilt. You've seen both options, Jet. So pick. What side do you choose? And so we see a panel of her just staring up close in her eyes. And we don't know how long that took. But she grabs the cable and she pulls them up. And she says, Father, forgive me. I knew it. I knew you'd do the right thing. You knew nothing. My aid is a fine line. Walk it with care. Tell me, this nausea in my belly and this tightness in my chest, saving these frocks will cure it? It's called guilt. And yes, saving them is the only medicine. So then she taps onto her headset. Father, shut down the biomass turbines. There is a jam in the belt, likely a ploy of the desperate Frock's father. It doesn't matter. We have all the mutates we need. Find yourself someplace safe with a view. The Zolas are leaving Dimension Z. What is it? I am afraid it is too late for your world, Captain America. The expansion begins. For you see, this is not merely a city. It is a battle station Zola, an indomitable warcraft with a deadly cargo. The tremors you feel are long dormant thrusters igniting. The ancient home of Zola finally rises. pushing us upward, pushing us up to fulfill Father's long and patient work. A city-sized bomb brimming with thousands of mutates armed with hypodermic infection rifles, each containing the liquid consciousness of my father. A more potent liquid consciousness than you received upon your arrival here, Captain. He will invade your homeland. He will release his mutates. He will take control of thousands of high-value targets, super beings, world leaders, and the affluent. They will be caught unaware. They will be infected. They will be Zola. And so the whole time that she's talking, the base is firing up and going into the sky with these humongous fiery thrusters. How do we stop it? You don't. There's nothing we can do now but take the trip to Earth to try and warn your armies. The Avengers. There will still be some form of Avengers. I have to get in contact with Earth now. I have no such technology. Father's first targets will be your friends in the superhero armies. We follow the first mutate hordes released and take them down. Father will see his plot's main objective lost, and he will retreat. That's not good enough. We have to get there first. Have to warn them. And he grabs his chest. Your chest, the Zola virus, you cut it out. Shut it up. For now, anyway. Still creeping. And he bends over in pain and blood, trying to take me. Time is short. Gather your strength. I'll help you find Ian, provided you promise to get him out of here. Remove him from this. I'll help save your home from my father, but you promise to give Ian a normal life. He is on level 77. His mind is being recalibrated, so you must hurry. I'll release the rest of the frocks and get them on an escape ship back to the surface. There it is, Rogers. A bed of hope. So stand up. Go get your boy. And he gets onto pulls himself up on using the side of the bridge, and he struggles to walk as he goes through the door to try to get to level 77. Hold him. Let him know he's safe. Let him know I'm getting him out of here. And then just then he yells out in pain as he's shot from behind, Bob, and this looks like a laser ray that just cuts through his flesh. You can actually see it burst out the other side.
Yeah, it's definitely a through wound.
Yeah. Make him see I'll never disappear. And then we cut to the last page, and it's a full page splash. And it's Ian standing there with a gun with the Captain Zolandia behind him, just like on the cover, standing over Steve with smoke coming out of his wound. And he says, "Hey, Dad, to be continued."
God doggone it, with the cliffhanger.
I know. A lot of them end on a full page splash. Have you noticed that?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
They really suck in with those full page splashes.
Yeah, and it's also to show the impact of whatever it is on, happening at the very end. But yeah, how about that?
Yeah, that's some good stuff.
So we got Jet Black turning on her dad, but Ian turning on Steve.
Crazy stuff going on in this book, Rick. Back and forth, twists and turns.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think Jet Black turned a little too quickly?
Well, what do you mean by that? I mean, she's been thinking about this for a couple issues, right? A few issues where she's been sort of wrestling with why Cap let her go when she just killed the enemy, right? And she couldn't wrap her head around that. And so it's been weighing on her. And he called it, right? I mean, he made a big gamble I mean, he's
He
hanging
did.
there, right? I mean, if she had made the other choice, I mean, I can't see how he would have gotten out of that one.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a big gamble, but he read her correctly, that she had been wrestling with this and had the uneasy. And he might have gotten that impression from his second encounter with her, when she didn't immediately try to kill him.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on this story?
Well, I mean, yep, still loving it, Rick. Right? This is a particularly, I think, great issue, particularly the writing. Those first few pages, that conversation between Ian and Steve about Steve's dad, I think, were really powerful. I mean, some of that writing where, oh yeah, it's Steve and his dad and Steve and Ian, but it's something like we can all sort of rest on and think about and apply in our own lives, which is a mark of really good writing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I know early on we were not happy with seeing the version of Steve's dad that Rick Remender, wrote into the story, and he was drunk and he was abusing his mom. But here I thought it was really interesting when he says to Ian, I spent my life running so hard away from his shadow, trying to be strong in every way he was weak. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That was deep for me. Right? Like some of the drive, we've always attributed a lot of his drive to the positiveness of his mom.
Right.
That she was, she inspired him to be a good man. But here it's, I spent my life running so hard away from his shadow, trying to be strong in every way he was weak. So it almost, part of it is Steve was inspired by his mom, but because of the things that he didn't like about his dad, he really focused on that and pushed for that.
Yeah.
I found that interesting, and I liked that.
I do too. And there's a second, second part of that. And I think we can all identify with this, right? I mean, we all see our fathers in a certain way when we're young. But then when we get older, we become fathers. We often see our fathers in a different way, or, not entirely
in a new light.
In
too.
a new light. Right.
Yeah.
When we can appreciate things in a way that maybe we didn't understand when we were young, and I tell my son this all the time, that, and Casey does as well, that, he is seeing us grow up even as we watch him grow up.
Yeah. But you think about it though, he's not going to remember a lot of the stuff when you were younger. So you're saying that he's seeing you grow up, but how much of it, when 5-10 years ago, is he going to remember that version of you? It's what I mean? Think back of your own father,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
And you're lucky your father's still alive. Right. So, you've been around for 50 some years. How many versions of your dad do you remember? Or do you just kind of remember one overall version? It's like, it's different, right? Because you've seen him, like, you don't spend a lot of time with him on a regular basis. So, there's gaps, like, I think
what I'm saying, Rick, is like when I was younger, I thought my dad had it all together. I thought my dad and my mom had it all together. I thought the relationship was great, and it was great, but it wasn't perfect the way that I saw it. Right. And, but it wasn't like, the Dick Van Dyke Show, Sue and Rob and whatever, but as you get older, you realize that relationships aren't like in the movies. They're not like in TV, and they're not always like they're presented to you. Right. We all have doubts as we grow older, right? I mean, they don't just go away when you turn 30 or 40 or become a parent.
Right.
In fact, they sometimes get more complicated, and I think, Steve recognizes as he gets older, I think, and I think reflecting back on his dad, he probably was angry with his dad. He probably didn't understand why his dad was acting the way he was acting, when he was a child. But as he gets older, he now understands that life can throw curveballs at you, can present you with situations that can wear at you and make you hopeless, cause you to lash out in ways that you don't even understand. But that's something that comes with wisdom and maturity in life. And you see your parents in a different light as an older person than you do when you were younger.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, like, you may not appreciate or respect, but you can understand.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You're like,
Yeah.
okay, I understand why they did that.
Yeah.
Or what have you, once you have a little bit more life experience yourself.
Right.
There was a quote. I don't know if is it Mark Twain. I'm going to get this wrong. I'm sure our listeners will probably let me know in the Facebook group, but he said something about, when I was a child and I looked at my dad, he was the strongest, smartest, handsomest man, in the world.
Yeah.
And then, as I became a teenager, something happened to him. He
Right.
he
Yeah.
changed. He was weak. He was stupid. He
Yeah.
didn't, whatever.
Yeah.
And then when I got into my 20s, something weird happened, and my dad changed back to how he was.
Right. Yeah.
It's weird how that happened.
It's weird how that happens.
you
Right.
know
Yeah.
and obviously,
Yeah.
it was the boy who was,
Sure.
going
Yeah.
through motions and seeing his dad different ways, right? So
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, like my dad, he passed away when I was 23.
Yeah.
So I never, like, I was just on that cusp of being an adult relationship with my dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I had just been out of college, maybe like 2 years. I was engaged. But he died before my wedding, obviously died before my kids were born, and so on. So I never had that, but certainly, when I was reading this story, it did touch on me that, yes, even though my dad had passed, when I was raising my kids, it, I understood. I looked at him in a new light.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I like to think that I'm a pretty good dad, and I put a lot of emphasis on being a dad and doing things for my kids. And I'm not going to go through everything, and I'm not going to here to pat myself on the back or anything like that. But we're talking about it, so it's part of this. But I had a mentor who was probably my dad's age, and I had his name was Lewis, wonderful man. He passed, maybe like 5 years ago, but for about 10 years there, he was there for me and a really tough time. I was going through my divorce. I was separated from my kids. It was a really, really tough time. And then he had seen that progress, as I got through those times. And one of the times that we were talking about being a dad, and he said, he was such a smart man. He could read people, and he said, "Well, you're a good dad, and at some point early in your informative years, you deep down had made a point that someday you were going to be a good dad, and you worked at it." And that's kind of what you became, because you made that decision early on in your life. And it was probably because I didn't have a great relationship with my dad. And so I wanted to make sure that that was the opposite. And so when we see Steve here, talk about how he disappeared and he became, disappeared into his duty, and he didn't, he said he didn't abuse the ones that he loved, but he was unavailable to them. And then he said, and this was the perspective that he earned when he was being there as a father to Ian, it was a new perspective that he learned by being a father, that, you know what, I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm not going to just, be absent to my loved ones and the people who care about me, and lose myself in duty. I'm going to be here for them. And so that was an awakening for Steve during this. And it's nice to see character development.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously this is something that I mean, this is something he's been wrestling with a very long time, right? This idea that he disappears into his duty and makes himself unavailable. I mean, that was essentially, right? I mean, sort of the excuse for the breakdown of his relationship with, following Bernie, and the fact that he sort of threw himself back into his duty rather than deal with the pain of being in a relationship.
So now, Bob, it's I think I go first this time as far as favorite panel. You're gonna this is gonna blow your mind.
Oh, is it?
Okay. Yeah. My favorite panel is on page 7. The last panel. That's the one where he's got the grappling hook and he's spinning it. That very last panel with that Captain Zoolander coming towards him, like all of a sudden you look at the glass and the way it's drawn is really like it's like, shaded, right?
Yeah.
So you really don't notice it too much. Like you see the reflection of Cap's wrist and twirling the thing, but then kind of like out of nowhere, it's almost like a shark attacking. It's like you turn your head, is like, whoa, it's there. And that's what happens here. Captain Zoolander is just running towards him. That I just thought was a really cool perspective and really well executed.
Yeah, I love that because, as you said, Cap has no idea. He doesn't see what we see. He doesn't see Captain Zoolander running through him until it's too late, until he comes crashing through that window, smack dab into his chest. So that's a great panel. Good choice.
Thank you. What's your favorite panel? This story?
I'm going with that one, Rick, that we were just discussing on page 3. The one where he says about when he talks about disappearing into duty. And I love just sort of the composition of that panel is great. And as other ones before that, because they're, as you said, they're sitting there. It's almost like they're relaxing after, a day of harvesting the crops, and they're just kind of kicking back. And, we see, looking over Cap's right shoulder, we see Ian, and Ian's sort of, looking at his dad in a very sort of curious manner, and Steve's teaching him here. He's giving him the wisdom of his age, and I love that because I will tell you, this one hits me personally for 2 reasons. One is I love my dad, and as you said, I still have my dad with me, and I talk to my dad once a week, and but I never had the sort of conversations with my dad that I have with my son. And my son, of course, my son says, you turn everything into a lesson. Right? Because I'm a lot like, Steve in that way, that I find a way to like pull a lesson from every experience, and whether he wants it or not. And this is what's going on here. Steve is giving Ian the benefit of hard-won wisdom from the mistakes he's made in his own life. And this idea of becoming a slave to an ideal and disappearing into duty is something that I have been guilty of in my life and continue to be guilty of, often, unconsciously. And I was just having this conversation with Casey, my wife, actually yesterday, Saturday, as we were driving back from the other coast, visiting some family. We were having this conversation about like this striking a balance between disappearing into your work or your duty or your sense of purpose, and how that can detract from just enjoying the moment, and particularly with family, and giving the time that's needed to make your family strong. And so, lots of people struggle with that. Lots of people wrestle with that in different ways. And I think this panel can speak to a lot of people. And that's why I think the writing was so great, and so great for Cap, but also great for each of us.
Yeah, no, I like that. I was, thinking about picking that same panel for a lot of the same reasons. It did touch on a lot of topics that we just covered, but yeah, great choice. What's going on your T-shirt?
I'm gonna go. I think it's the following page from the panel you just selected. I think that page 9. Is it page 9? And it's the one where Cap that quarter splash there where Cap kicks off Captain Zolandia's buzzsaw in order to get some separation, and you hear twing as he kicks off the shield. I think that'd be great on a T-shirt.
Interesting. Okay. Well, guess what, Bob?
What?
I'm doing the same page, but I am doing the bottom 3 panels. So the part where he lands and bounces.
Yeah.
And then the next 2 panels, and I want that whole section
okay
on across my chest, because that's so cool. You see Cap, getting defeated and just looking like he's being defeated actually, and then talks about his lungs refuse to do this, and he's got a torn rotator cuff, but what does he say? Ignore it, stand up. I want that on a T-shirt, Bob.
Yeah, that's a good selection. I like that. Good choice.
Thank you.
Good choice. I think this is gonna be a tough one, Rick, but do you have a time capsule for this issue?
It is. It is a tough one, Bob.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. All right. I'm pulling this one out of my butt, but I think I'm gonna go with page 13. And I'm gonna go with the bottom half, those 3 panels where Jet Black is looking, and then she grabs the cable, and she starts pulling up Cap.
Okay.
And the reason it's going into my time capsule is because this is the very first time, it's monumental, that Jet Black did something positive and altruistic.
Excellent.
She's showing, that she's not truly evil, and perhaps maybe she has a little goodness in her.
Yeah. I like that. All right.
Is that time capsule worthy?
I think that's time capsule worthy. I will accept it.
Thank you. What do you got?
I'm going to go with that panel where he pulls page maybe page 7. I don't know, where he pulls the grappling hook and cable out of his pouch.
Okay.
Because, again, I'm a pouch guy. I like pouches. And lots of folks think that's a throwback to World War II. He only wore those in World War II because, he would have to carry, World War II rations, right? Stuff like that. But there's all kinds of stuff you can carry in pouches. So right here, we see that it is
shark repellent,
mints, Band-Aids. Yeah. Right. All kinds of stuff.
If it was Blistex, he would have chapstick.
That's right. So I think this once and for all, puts the nail in the coffin of this argument that Cap can use pouches and has good reason to. So
excellent. All right. Yeah. Well, that's a good choice for the time capsule. All right, Bob. So we are going to go into the Wayback Machine next episode. We're going to go into 1972. That's like 51 years ago, Bob.
Yeah, right.
We're going to go do Captain America 151 and 152. And this is a 2-part story that is written by Jerry Conway, art by Sal Buscema. And it is the last 2 issues prior to Steve Englehart taking over Cap with his unforgettable 1950s Cap storyline and then his long run. So this is the last 2 issues before that, and it stars Mr. Hyde and Scorpion as they kidnap Sharon Carter, and it's up to Captain America and the Falcon to rescue her.
All right. This sounds like a classic tale.
It is indeed. So come back for that. But you know what? Before you do that, before you come back for next episode for 151 and 152, you might want to check out episode 81, because there we cover 149 and 150. So if you want to get a flavor for what's going on in Cap and books, check out episode 81 and then come back here. And then it's like you never left.
Yeah. It's like you never left. You're still with us.
Exactly. All right, Bob. Well, it has been so much fun wrapping Cap with you.
It has. I can't wait till next week, Rick.
Excellent. All right. Well, he's Bob Lucius. I'm Rick Verbanis. You have been listening to another episode of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast.